Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I guess this will be an extra video. I usually do my sports ones here on Apocalypse Now, and I do politics and other stuff on my spiritual stuff and things on my Pockets of the Future channel. All of my channels are available in the description box of any of my videos, also the channel for the Gratefulness Meditation. So this one's about sports, but really about streaming and also about the year of the amateur, right? Because there was a football game that was only on the Peacock network. Peacock is NBC. And it was a game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Miami Dolphins, which looked like it was going to be one of the more competitive and interesting games. And it was only on the Peacock network. Now, Paramount Network, which is CBS, CBS has their own streaming network. Peacock has their own streaming network. And ABC, Disney, they have Disney Plus and ESPN Plus, and they have all these related type of networks to go with ABC already, right? But this is where they are moving to a paid subscription-based format in these network TV shows and all the rest of these things. Of course, there's HBO Max, which is now just called Max, and you have all these various types of streaming services out there. And many of them are paid. Of course, they have had football games all year on Amazon Prime, which I complained about because the Amazon Prime playback, their video player, sucks. And you can judge these sites, whether it's Hulu, Netflix, YouTube TV Plus, and all these things, based on their player. Their player is important in terms of fast forwarding. Like for Amazon, the image just wouldn't come up where you were fast forwarding if you have, not the best internet. And so you don't know where you're fast forwarding to. Like if I'm watching a football game, I will fast forward through all the dead time. Unless there's an interesting play that I want to see replayed, I don't listen to the commentators, and I just fast forward to the next play. And I'm able to do that fairly easy on DirecTV and or YouTube TV. But these other video players suck for that because you end up fast forwarding too much or not enough, and so and there's usually a lag sometimes with the internet that we have, so it all is makes it an unpleasant experience. I can't watch a 3-hour football game with commercials or whatever it is, right? So I saw this game was going to be played between the Miami Dolphins and Kansas City Chiefs, but I couldn't find a place to record it on DirecTV, so I had to go and figure out that it was only on Peacock. And my wife wasn't feeling great yesterday. She was, just a little bit under the weather, kind of tired, and it was really cold here. We've had, part of this whole cold front that hit Kansas City in this game, and it's -5 today. It was, 2 or 3 degrees outside yesterday, 5 degrees, whatever it was. And it was freezing, and so we were just going to watch football and some other things. We were going to watch some of the games. I felt like I said, I fast forward through things, and and if a game looks like a blowout, I might fast forward a little bit and see if the other team comes back at all. Especially if I'm not all that interested in the game. It's entertainment, right? I don't look at it like it's a real, whatever it is. But it's entertaining, it's familiar. And we were interested in the Miami Dolphins game because we were watching the Hard Knocks show, which we really enjoy. And the Miami Dolphins had one of the better seasons on Hard Knocks. And so for a variety of reasons, we were wanting to watch that game. And so I figured out it was just on Peacock. And I had subscribed to Peacock before. We had watched Yellowstone on the show, on the network, but I thought that it was originally on Paramount because Paramount is CBS where Yellowstone was originally broadcast. So I didn't understand that they had sold Yellowstone to Peacock, and they sold all the other shows by that guy, whatever his name is, Tyler Sheridan, right? So he sold all these other shows to Paramount, which we subscribed to like last month. And I had unsubscribed from Peacock because it just sucked. It was just NBC shows, and we had no interest in really watching it. And it cost like $11 a month, $11 a month to have it free of commercials, which is a big thing, which I'll get into in a bit, right? So I have a Peacock account, but I'm not paying anything for it. And I decided to resubscribe because we wanted to watch the last couple seasons of Yellowstone. So this whole thing I'm, building up to. And all these things you got to go through now all these different subscribing services, right? And, they have different things, different shows, different movies are spread across these various types of applications, right? And, they all cost money. And the thing about these subscription services, you can let them go and forget to unsubscribe and be paying for something you don't use, like a gym membership, right? When people go and get a gym membership and it just automatically renew even though they hadn't gone to the gym in years. And so it's one of the things that wastes your money and, whatever. I use these shows because I talk about them here. It's part of this, channel. It's like basically an expense for me to do what I'm doing. I cover a lot of mainstream media and things like this, and TV shows and movies. But anyway, so I resubscribed to Peacock and I got it all set up. And there was an earlier game, and we have DirecTV, and DirecTV doesn't have a contract with our local stations because of the, whatever's going on there. That happens once in a while. So we had to watch the game on Peacock, and when I looked at it, their video player sucks. It doesn't have a fast forward or rewind, and it's just a live broadcast, which means if you go away from if you watch something else for a little bit or whatever it is, you lose out on. It's just like old-fashioned TV, which would be okay if you weren't paying for it, right? I mean, it wouldn't be great, but it would be okay if you weren't paying for it. And of course, on DirecTV, I have the ability to record things and then fast forward through commercials. And I can also do that on YouTube TV. But with this thing that was exclusively on Peacock, we had to watch the whole game from the beginning to the end. Now, the game between the Texans and the Cleveland Browns, which is kind of a blowout, we were able to watch that. We didn't watch the whole game, watched little bits of it. It was pretty good in the beginning. It was a high-scoring game in the beginning, and then Cleveland Browns sort of imploded. We were able to watch that on YouTube TV, but not on DirecTV because of the local station having this contract dispute, right? And it's getting so freaking complex. And so we end up watching the Miami Dolphins game with the Kansas City Chiefs, which was kind of a blowout, and Miami didn't look like they had much of a chance throughout the game, especially their offense, because they're used to playing in frickin' Florida and practicing in Florida, which is probably, 70, 80 degrees now. Right now the temperature is 73 degrees, and it was like 20 below with wind chill in Kansas City yesterday when they were playing the game. So, it was, a game that was already going to be lopsided, and Miami had all these players that were hurt. But when I realized you couldn't fast forward and we were going to have to watch the whole game, commercials included, I was like, we're paying for this, right? If you're paying for a subscription, you're paying so that you can watch it on your terms. And it doesn't record the game. You couldn't go back and watch it later after the game was done, which many other services offer, right? That's the whole idea about streaming. You can watch the stuff on your terms when you have free time, and you can watch it, fast forward through it, watch parts again if you want. That's the whole idea about paying for a streaming service. And I've seen this before with, these various corporations. Everyone thinks these CEOs and people who are running these corporations are brilliant, and they make good decisions, and they're in tune with their customer base, and they're clearly not. And we see this with YouTube constantly. Some of it's political pressure, some of it's, some of the decisions are not based in what the company themselves would want to do. But in this case, NBC, Peacock made incredibly incompetent decision. Because if you're going to be the first streaming service to stream a playoff game, you better have your poop together, right? You better know what you're doing, and you better have a quality video player, and you better have the ability to record these things if you're going to charge people money to pay for it. If you're going to make people pay for something, you better have all that stuff ready to go so that people aren't pissed off. And I know the internet's abuzz with how bad the service works. Some people couldn't get it to work at all, and it was a whole thing. And so you're going to make people subscribe to it. You better have a good performance because, you're wanting people to keep your service where people get it for one day or do a free trial and get rid of it and then, whatever, because of just one playoff game. There's other things they have to watch there, and you want people to look at your other content. You should have like a package that is, people don't feel like forced to buy something and get pissed off at you immediately after purchasing something because they have to watch things on your terms because they're doubling down with getting you to pay It's like there's two services. The one without commercials is $11, and if you have to pay $11 a month and watch commercials, then you're going to be pissed off, right? You're paying to not watch commercials. You're paying for a streaming service, right? And this is the wave of the future where everything's going to be paid for content, and I'm going to eventually have to go to that model here because YouTube ads just aren't working for me anymore. And then, at some point, maybe even go to another platform or whatever it might be because of YouTube just absolutely, with the censorship and then it not being economically viable, they're making it harder and harder for people to squeak out a living on their deteriorating platform. And there's just going to be these little sub-platforms all over the place where people are going to have to pay for content and, all these things, right? And like I said, some things are political power. There's social power and political power pushing these companies to do certain things, censorship or whatever. But this was a self-inflicted wound by NBC and Disney. They have a lot of crappy content out there. They have a lot of crappy political views, and it's a more liberal-leaning news. MSNBC is one of the most liberal-leaning network, and then they, pull this crap, and like people were pissed off. And at one point in the show, in the game, my wife and I, skipped parts of it because we were watching other stuff. We were doing things, so, we couldn't. We missed part of the game. It didn't matter. The game sucked. But at one point, they said, "Is it okay if we share your Peacock data with the NFL?" And I go, "No, it's not boop-ing okay if you boop-ing share my M&F and data with the NFL, right?" Let me get this straight. So you want us to pay for your subscription-based product, force us to watch football, which used to always be on network TV, and you have a network, which is NBC, and you have local stations, and you're screwing those local stations out of an NFL game. These are things that bring in a lot of income for these smaller stations, so that's a whole other thing, right? But you have the ability to, have this be on regular TV, but you're doing something new, and you're making us pay for it, and then you're going to run commercials anyway, so we have to get we're getting doubly charged. You're not only charging us money, but you're wasting our time with commercials we don't want to see. But you also want to sell my data to the NFL? Like you're really hidden for the cycle. I've talked about this year being the year of the amateur, and I'm focusing on stuff that's been around for a while. But these guys who run these corporations, they're completely clueless and don't understand. And they wouldn't put a video player out like they have. Like Amazon's video player sucks. Peacock's is actually worse because it's less like having network TV. It's like, the video player, at least in terms of the football game, you can judge these video players compared to other video players, and it's a software issue. And these guys don't watch TV, like people making decisions. And there was the commercial for Infinity Internet, and the internet was down. They had these, some group of friends watching TV, and the internet went down. And one guy said he had a mole on his belly shaped like Abraham Lincoln when he pulled his fat beer belly out and he started making his mole talk like it was Abraham Lincoln. And it was gross, and my wife and I were like eating or whatever. We were like, we usually get skipped. And we're like, who's the genius behind this ad campaign that wants you to associate this ugly mole on some fat dude's belly with their product, right? And it's just amateur hour out there. Like they don't use these services, or otherwise they would realize how bad it is. And then they get all this pushback. People are failing like all the time. I've been talking about Pat McAfee failing with Aaron Rodgers, and I'm putting up a video on my other channel about the horrible TV show. It was probably going up on the same day tomorrow. Today's Sunday, January 14th, so I'll put these things both up tomorrow on my other channel, which was about the show, The Curse. And it's just such amateur hour out there. It's brutal. Like, it's just blatant incompetence, and mind-numbingly so, because when you don't understand your customer base and how they use your product and what they're looking for and what they're paying for, right, then you have disgruntled users. And, it goes beyond just because MSNBC, NBC, these networks, they have a variety of different things that they do. And when people turn on your network, especially something like American and, as almost like it's like a holiday of playoff games and things, and football is such a tradition, and you're going to exclude people and make people jump through a hoop so that they add your crappy service, and you're making their impression of your service, your Peacock service, and they're like, this thing sucks, right? Like, you don't want to roll something out unless you have it ready to go. You don't release a car like a Tesla or something like this and have it have break down all the time and have people have issues with it, especially in the beginning of its, if it's a new car or new whatever it is, whatever the thing is, you want to make sure it works, that people are satisfied, happy with your product, because you want to have that good first impression. And they completely punted and failed on this thing in a disastrous way. Anyways, that's my rant about the MSNBC Peacock. Only spirituality will save this world. This Paul Romano, definitely pouring from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.